Alex was scrolling through his phone late at night when a video suddenly appeared on his feed. It was Samantha, his ex-girlfriend, laughing with a glass of champagne in her hand. She called him a pathetic loser who still couldn't move on, and thousands of comments flooded the screen supporting her. Alex froze when he saw the title, "The Man Who Tried to Ruin a Cancer Patient." This was the same woman who had once cried in his arms, telling him she was fighting for her life while donations poured in to help her. Now she was publicly mocking him, framing him as the villain, while the world cheered her on. A wave of humiliation and anger washed over him, but beneath it was something stronger: doubt. What if everything she told him was never real? That night, Alex made a decision. He would uncover the truth, no matter where it led. Alex's mind could not rest after that night. Even after he shut off his phone, the image of Samantha laughing on screen kept replaying in his head. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every memory they had shared. The hospital visits she described, the tears, the fear of dying. He had believed it all without question. But that video made something snap. He couldn't explain it, but a voice deep inside told him that something wasn't right. He had to know the truth. The next morning, instead of going to work like usual, Alex drove across town to the medical center Samantha claimed she was being treated at. He didn't call ahead. He didn't plan anything. He simply walked in and asked to speak with the oncologist, whose name Samantha had repeated so many times, Dr. Edward Miller. The receptionist looked confused but polite as she asked him to wait. Alex sat in the lobby, hands clasped tightly, heart pounding. Every second that passed made him more nervous. What if he was wrong? What if Samantha really was sick, and he was about to embarrass himself beyond imagination? But he stayed seated and waited. Finally, a middle-aged man in a white coat stepped out from the hallway and introduced himself as Dr. Miller. Alex stood, introduced himself, and began speaking carefully. He said he had someone close to him who had been receiving treatment from the doctor, mentioning Samantha's full name. He fully expected a sympathetic nod, maybe even concern. Instead, Dr. Miller looked completely puzzled. He shook his head slowly and said he had never treated a patient with that name. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He clarified again, thinking maybe the doctor had misheard. But Dr. Miller apologized and repeated himself. He had no such patient on record. He even checked the computer system right there in front of him, scrolling through the files while Alex stood motionless, feeling his world tilt sideways. Nothing. Not even a misspelling. Samantha's name simply did not exist in their patient registry. Dr. Miller asked if maybe she was being treated in another department or at another hospital. Alex could barely form a response. He felt embarrassment first, then confusion, and finally a dull, rising dread. He thanked the doctor and stepped outside, the sun unexpectedly bright in his eyes. He stood in the parking lot for several minutes, staring at the concrete as the pieces of the past began to rearrange in his mind. The pills Samantha took. The nights she claimed she was too weak to walk. The stories of bad test results and emergency calls. He realized something chilling. He had never seen a medical bill. Never seen a hospital bracelet. Never seen any document that couldn't be faked with effort. Until that moment, he had trusted her without verifying anything. Now that trust was crumbling. Alex got into his car and sat in silence. He could have gone home, convinced himself that the doctor was mistaken, and tried to forget the whole thing. But he couldn't. If even one detail was a lie, what else had been fabricated? His hands tightened around the steering wheel. He needed evidence. He needed answers. And he was going to get them, quietly, without warning Samantha, and without anyone knowing what he was doing. For the first time, Alex decided to investigate the woman he once loved. Alex didn't drive home. Instead, he sat in the car and searched for the main number of the hospital on his phone. He took a deep breath before calling, trying to steady his voice. If Samantha had been treated under a different doctor or department, someone in the system would have a record. The operator transferred him to medical records. A woman came on the line and asked for basic details. He explained calmly, saying he needed to confirm whether his family member had been treated there. He gave Samantha's full name, date of birth, and address. There was a brief pause, followed by the sound of typing. Alex waited, heart in his throat. Finally, the woman said that no such patient existed in their system. Not now. Not ever. She asked if he might be confusing hospitals. He thanked her and ended the call, his hand shaking slightly as he lowered the phone. One denial could be a mistake. Two was a warning. He leaned back in the seat and exhaled. Some part of him still wanted to believe Samantha. Maybe she used another name. Maybe she had switched hospitals. Maybe the doctor had forgotten. But that last excuse crumbled quickly. People don't forget patients with terminal cancer. Alex knew he needed more than suspicion. He needed something concrete. The answer came faster than he expected. Back at his apartment, in the hall closet, was a small cardboard box Samantha had left behind. She had moved out in a hurry, insisting she didn't need anything from the storage area. At the time, Alex had assumed it was because she was too sick to handle lifting and packing. Now he saw that explanation differently. He pulled the box out, set it on the table, and opened it. It was mostly old clothes and notebooks, but at the bottom was the real surprise: a slim silver laptop, the one Samantha used every day before she replaced it last year. Alex plugged it in and waited. The machine powered on without a password. He hesitated, feeling a brief surge of guilt. This was an invasion of privacy. But Samantha had gone online accusing him publicly, attacking his character, implying he was sabotaging a dying woman. If she was lying, he deserved to know. He clicked through her folders. At first, there was nothing unusual. Photos, music, school assignments. Then he opened a folder titled Projects. Inside were PDFs labeled Treatment Plan, Medical Summary, and Lab Results. His pulse quickened. He opened one. The logo at the top looked official at first glance, but the formatting felt off. There were spelling errors. The doctor's name was typed differently than how Dr. Miller had spelled it earlier. It looked like something created in a rush, or by someone without medical training. Alex checked the file properties. They hadn't been scanned. They had been created directly on the laptop. His chest tightened. He clicked another folder labeled Scripts. Inside were documents that read like monologues. Lines with instructions such as pause here and show emotion, and make eyes water before speaking this part. He scrolled through, stunned. Samantha had written out what she would say in her emotional live videos. The crying, the trembling voice, the slow breaths, it was all rehearsed. At the bottom of the folder was a spreadsheet named Donations. He opened it. Rows and rows of dates, platforms, payment methods, and total earnings. Daily totals. Weekly summaries. Even conversion notes for international donations. It was meticulously organized, tracked to the dollar. She wasn't just lying. She was running a business. Alex leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. A mix of shock, disbelief, and betrayal washed over him. Everything she had told him, the hospital trips, the chemo exhaustion, the tears, had been carefully constructed. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. This was no longer a matter of misunderstanding. This was fraud. And now, for the first time, he had proof. Alex didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the laptop screen, scrolling through the files again and again, just to be sure his mind wasn't playing tricks on him. Every document confirmed the same horrifying truth. Samantha had orchestrated the entire cancer story from start to finish. The donations, the live stream breakdowns, The inspirational speeches about fighting for her life, it was all scripted. Alex understood then that silence was no longer an option. But he also knew Samantha wouldn't go down quietly. She had an audience, a massive one, and she had built her reputation on pity, performance, and emotional manipulation. If he wanted to expose her, he needed undeniable proof, and he needed the public to see it for themselves. Before he could decide his next move, Samantha acted first. The following evening, Alex received a notification on his phone from a social media app. Samantha was live. Against his better judgment, he tapped into the broadcast. There she was, sitting in soft lighting with tissues in her hand, eyes already watery. She told her viewers that she had been attacked online by someone she once trusted, someone who was trying to destroy her just because she refused to get back together with him. Her audience flooded the comment section with outrage, sympathy, and support. Some even donated live during the stream, sending encouraging messages. Then Samantha took it a step further. She claimed that Alex had been spreading lies about her treatment, accusing her of faking her illness. She called him mentally unstable. She said he couldn't let go. She said she feared for her safety. Alex sat frozen, watching tens of thousands of people listen to her every word like gospel. The worst part was that she was good at it. She sniffled at the right moments, paused in her sentences as if battling overwhelming sadness, and even glanced downward with a trembling lip. The performance was flawless. But now Alex understood exactly why. It was rehearsed. He had seen the scripts. She wasn't improvising. She was acting. As the broadcast continued, she made a dramatic announcement. She was launching a new fundraiser, not for medical treatment this time, but for legal protection and emotional recovery from online harassment. The audience erupted in support. Donation notifications started flashing across the screen again. Alex stared in disbelief. She wasn't just defending herself. She was turning the situation into even more profit. Minutes later, her name started trending. Memes and videos mocking Alex began circulating. People who had never met him were calling him heartless, toxic, jealous, and abusive. His inbox flooded with messages from strangers telling him he should be ashamed of himself. Some even threatened him. Samantha didn't just protect her lie, she weaponized it. Alex realized that if he didn't speak up now, he was about to become the villain in a story he didn't create. He opened his laptop, took a deep breath, and began posting the folder of evidence he had gathered. Screenshots of fabricated medical forms, records of donation tracking, snippets of the rehearsal scripts. He didn't include commentary. He didn't insult her. He simply posted the truth. At first, no one believed it. Fans accused him of forging documents out of spite. But then more and more people began studying the files. Medical professionals pointed out inconsistencies. Viewers noticed typos on the medical reports. Someone compared the timestamp metadata and realized they had indeed been created on Samantha's laptop. Slowly, the tone online began to shift. People who had once attacked Alex suddenly grew quiet. Questions started circulating. Comments demanded explanations. The tide was turning. For the first time since the nightmare began, Alex felt like he wasn't drowning anymore. The truth finally had a voice. Samantha didn't disappear after the evidence began circulating. In fact, she doubled down. She claimed every document Alex posted was fabricated and edited by him out of revenge. She insisted that she would address everything publicly in one grand livestream event. She teased it for days, hyping it up across all of her platforms. By the night of the broadcast, tens of thousands of viewers were waiting before she even went live. Her loyal followers filled the chat with messages of support, telling her they had her back and they believed in her no matter what. Samantha appeared on screen wearing a sparkling dress, makeup perfectly done, hair styled with loose curls. She didn't look like someone fighting a deadly illness, but her audience didn't question it. Standing beside her was her new boyfriend, Derek, holding a bottle of champagne. He raised it toward the camera and smiled, calling the evening a celebration of truth and victory. Music played in the background, and the room behind them was decorated with balloons and glittering banners. Samantha began speaking, delivering a dramatic monologue about resilience, strength, and how she would never let an obsessed ex destroy her life. She dabbed at the corner of her eye with a tissue, though no tears had appeared yet. Derek chimed in with supportive remarks, calling Alex a stalker and insisting that Samantha was the victim of malicious online bullying. The chat exploded with applause emojis and cheering messages. Donation alerts streamed across the screen constantly. Then came the dramatic crescendo. Samantha raised her hand and announced that she would be filing a lawsuit against Alex for defamation and emotional damage. Her fans roared in support. Derek poured champagne into glasses, and they toasted on camera. Samantha smiled for the audience, holding the glass up, ready to drink. And then, in an instant, everything changed. A loud crashing sound erupted from somewhere off camera. Samantha froze, her smile fading. Derek turned toward the noise, confused. Before anyone could react, the door behind them burst open and uniformed agents rushed into the room. One of them shouted loudly, ordering everyone to freeze. Screams appeared in the livestream chat as viewers tried to process what they were seeing. Samantha stood paralyzed, glass still in her hand, eyes wide with disbelief. Derek dropped his drink and raised his hands. In the chaos, one agent stepped into full frame, badge visible, and announced that Samantha was under arrest on multiple federal charges including wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. The livestream was still running. Tens of thousands of people were watching as Samantha was handcuffed in real time. She tried to speak, insisting there was a misunderstanding, but her voice trembled as panic finally replaced her performance. Derek was also restrained and escorted out. The music continued playing in the background, awkwardly cheerful as the scene unfolded like a surreal movie. Agents moved around the room collecting electronics, documents, and financial records. Samantha was led toward the door, repeatedly saying she had done nothing wrong, begging her viewers to stay with her and not believe the lies. But the audience was no longer reacting with faith. The chat had shifted from blind devotion to stunned silence, then exploding into disbelief and betrayal. Some demanded answers. Others apologized to Alex. Many simply typed the same message, "I can't believe it." The live stream finally went dark as agents cut the camera feed. Across the internet, clips of the arrest began spreading within minutes. Samantha's empire of lies had collapsed in the most public way possible. And Alex, watching from home, exhaled for the first time in days. He didn't cheer. He didn't smile. He simply sat back, stunned by how quickly justice had come crashing through the screen. Samantha spent the first night in federal custody, insisting that everything was a mistake. She told agents she was the victim of a jealous ex and that the truth would come out once her lawyers arrived. But while she sat in a holding room waiting for her phone call, investigators were already digging through the seized laptops, hard drives, bank statements, and chat logs. The story unraveled fast. What Alex had discovered was only the surface of a much larger scheme. Federal agents traced Samantha's online activity back several years and found that her supposed cancer diagnosis was not her first lie. Before Alex ever met her, she had run fundraising campaigns under different names and different backstories. In one case, she pretended to be a struggling single mother trying to afford surgery for her young son. There was no son. In another, she posed as a volunteer organizing support for homeless veterans. No funds had ever been forwarded to charities. All the money went directly into her personal accounts. Bank statements showed deposits from dozens of platforms, processed through multiple payment services, rooted into carefully timed transfers designed to avoid suspicion. But the most damning discovery came from her message history. Investigators found private conversations between Samantha and Derek detailing strategies for maximizing sympathy, including notes on how to present herself on camera, what diseases would trigger the most donations, and how to react emotionally to different viewer responses. It became clear that nothing about her online persona was spontaneous. Everything was calculated. Agents also found that the stories she told Alex during their relationship matched similar scripts she had used on past boyfriends, many of whom had donated or helped her spread the lie without realizing it. Several had screenshots preserved in online forums from years earlier, documenting their suspicions, but never having enough evidence to pursue legal action. Now there was more than enough. The financial damage was staggering. Over the past 5 years, Samantha had collected more than $247,000 in fraudulent donations. Some came from strangers. Some came from people who had lost family members to cancer and believed they were helping someone survive what their loved ones could not. The cruelest case involved a charitable fund set up for children with terminal illnesses. Samantha had applied as a recipient under an alias, fabricated medical records, and received several disbursements before disappearing. When investigators contacted representatives from the charity, some staff broke down in tears. That money could have gone to real children in pain. Samantha had taken it without hesitation. Federal agents assembled a timeline of her fraud schemes, matching every dollar to fake stories, staged videos, and fabricated identities. They also found the financial records from the night of the live stream, showing thousands of dollars donated while she raised a champagne glass and claimed to be fighting for her life. Meanwhile, Alex was interviewed and provided everything he had discovered, including dates, files, and his personal statements. The investigators praised his persistence, acknowledging that his findings had sped up the process immensely. While he listened to agents describe the full scale of Samantha's crimes, Alex realized something chilling. He had only known the version of her she wanted him to see. The lies went far beyond him. She had been deceiving the world long before he entered the picture. By the time investigators finished compiling the evidence, there was no question about what Samantha had done. She hadn't fallen into one bad decision. She had built a life around deception. And now, every part of it was collapsing under the weight of the truth. Samantha's trial became one of the most talked-about cases in the state. News outlets covered every development, from her arrest to the charges filed against her. Public opinion was split at first, with some of her loyal followers still believing she was a misunderstood victim. Others, especially those who had donated money, demanded accountability and hoped to see justice served. When the trial opened, the courtroom was packed. Camera crews waited outside, while people from across the country watched live commentary and analysis online. Samantha entered the courtroom wearing a suit instead of her signature dramatic scarves and hospital sweaters. Her confidence seemed shaken, but she still tried to carry herself with composure. Her lawyers argued that the laptop files could have been planted or altered, and insisted she was simply a woman being destroyed by a vindictive ex. But the prosecution came prepared. They opened their case with a mountain of digital evidence seized from Samantha's devices. They displayed screenshots of donation logs, spreadsheets tracking daily income, and chat conversations where Samantha and Derek discussed which illnesses generated the most emotional response. The courtroom grew uneasy as the prosecution read aloud lines from the scripts Samantha had written for her live streams. Sentences like "pause here and cry softly," "hold stomach as if in pain," and "look away before saying test results worsened" painted a chilling picture. Jurors exchanged tense glances as they realized her performances were not moments of panic or desperation, but pre-planned emotional theatrics designed for profit. Medical experts were then called to testify. They analyzed the medical documents Samantha had shared online and pointed out formatting issues, inaccurate terminology, and fabricated signatures. One expert testified that a supposed chemotherapy treatment Samantha claimed to be undergoing didn't even exist. Financial investigators took the stand next. They walked the jury through the flow of money, donations coming in under emotional appeals and then being transferred immediately into personal accounts, credit card payments, vacations, designer shopping, and luxury hospitality. The most powerful testimony, however, came from former donors. A middle-aged woman took the stand and said she had lost her husband to cancer the year she donated. She told the court she gave money because she thought she was helping someone avoid the suffering her husband endured. While speaking, she broke down in tears. Several jurors wiped their eyes. Then came Derek's testimony. Faced with federal charges himself, he agreed to cooperate fully. He confirmed that the entire scheme had been Samantha's idea and that she had been running donation scams for years. He told the court she had treated the operations like a business, adjusting her persona based on what brought in the most money. With every witness, Samantha's defense grew weaker. Her lawyers tried to argue that she was a victim of emotional instability, but the sheer volume of evidence made that argument fall flat. When Samantha finally took the stand, she tried to cry and claim she had never meant to hurt anyone. But after days of testimony exposing her calculated actions, her words sounded hollow. The jury deliberated for less than a day. When they returned, the courtroom fell completely silent. The verdict was read: guilty on multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and aggravated fraud. Samantha was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. She was also ordered to pay more than $747,000 in restitution to victims. Gasps filled the courtroom as the sentence was read, but Samantha's expression barely changed. The woman who once controlled audiences with tears and trembling lips sat emotionless, staring forward, as if her performance had finally run out of script. As she was led away in handcuffs, the reality was unavoidable. The lies, the manipulation, the calculated deception, every piece had come crashing down. The courtroom doors closed behind her, and for the first time since the scandal began, justice had a tangible weight to it. Alex stood outside the courthouse the next morning, the city waking up around him as camera flashes exploded in his direction. Reporters shouted his name, demanding statements, asking whether he felt vindicated, whether he had ever been in love with Samantha in the first place. He didn't answer, not because he didn't know, but because none of it mattered anymore. Inside, Samantha's sentencing had been swift and unemotional, her once confident smile replaced by a hollow stare as the truth of her lies played on a screen for everyone to witness. The donations she'd collected, the fabricated medical reports, the emotional manipulation, the public humiliation of anyone who questioned her, all laid bare without room for argument. As she was led away, she didn't look at Alex, but he felt a strange sense of closure anyway. He hadn't one for revenge. He had one for the truth. Walking away from the crowd, Alex finally exhaled, feeling the weight lifting off his shoulders. He realized he didn't need an apology or validation from the world, because the truth had spoken for itself. And with that, he could finally move forward.